I am going to mute everyone, and then I want you to participate. You just need to unmute yourself or use the space bar, whichever works for you. But let's get into, whoops. Oh, too much coffee this morning. All right. Gratitudes. How about it, John Patterson? I called on you a minute ago, but we got somewhere else. So you're going to have to hit the space bar, unmute.
There we go. Man, I'm really grateful for, I attended some events this weekend and I reconnected with some people that I haven't talked to in a long time, made some good connections. So it was a good, uplifting weekend for me.
Nice.
Start out on a Monday. So I'm grateful for that.
Who else has got some gratitudes to share? It could be real estate related or anything else for that matter.
I am gracious that I made it back from West Palm Beach.
Oh my gosh.
I drove
Before
from
the hurricane?
I drove from 6:45 in the morning on Friday morning all the way till 9:15 at Friday night, and I made it back to Memphis.
Gosh. Was it
And
raining?
That's a long haul. That's a long haul from
long
there to
time.
Florida.
Yeah, the whole way home it rained.
I've only
No,
driven
no,
to Miami
it only
once,
rained
and
like
that's a long way.
15-hour drive.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Oh.
And I made it back safely, and I got my cards and I got my badge, all of it waiting for me on a Monday when I got back.
All right, good.
That's what I'm great. That's what I'm gracious for.
Right. I have my boys visiting from college this weekend. They were both home, so that was good to see them. All right, anybody else?
Hi, morning, everyone. I just want to say I'm thankful for being healthy this morning. My neighbors around me are blessed. My family is fine. Sometimes I just want to say thank you, Lord, just for making me secure and safe in His grace.
All right, thank you. All right, let's get into a quick review of some things we covered last week. And the first one here is just about your database. Get some tips if you've got it digital, mobile, and the simpler, the better. I find the simpler it is, the more likely you are to use it and hopefully keep it updated on a weekly basis. Just curious, is anybody out there that, since we talked about this last week, that maybe didn't quite have their database in something that was motivated to start working on it, or just update it a little bit? Who can tell me what we discussed Pi time last week? Who can tell me a little bit about Pi time and why it's important?
Well, your P time is your productive time. That's the time when you're in front of a contract. Your I time is your indirect time, when you should be working on your it's not the forward, it's your flow. You should be working on your flow during your I time.
Yep. Pi time's anything that helps you create P time.
Right. And
Yep.
E is just everything else. Yeah.
Yep. There you go. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And if you remember back from we watched the little dancing bear video last week. What did the dancing bear represent?
Your P time.
Yep, the P time, and that sometimes it can slip by you without you noticing it. Exactly. You can focus your efforts on other things and miss your P time. Great. Thank you, John. All right. And we also talked about the 4 personality types: power, party, peace, and perfection. Just as something here, let's just talk about a couple of these things. If you were a power person and you figure out you're working with a peace customer or client, what are a couple of ideas that you might try to think about and implement for yourself if you were doing that? How about it, Jack? Nothing like putting you on the spot. And Jack's walked away from his computer. All right, somebody else chime in here.
I wasn't on last week's call, but I'm assuming that it's on the intranet, the personality questionnaire. Is that what it is? That you're
Well, it's as far as ninja selling goes, it's basically they've kind of simplified it down to the, like, if you've heard of the, most people have heard of the DISC personality profile. This is very similar. He's just renamed those categories so that it's a little bit easier to remember.
Okay.
But let's just take this one for example. So if you're a power person working with a peace person, my number one suggestion is you need to probably slow down.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And you probably need to, instead of talking about things in terms of winning, you probably maybe want to shift that a little bit, and so that they're not going to miss out on something of that nature would be good. What about if your party working with a perfection client?
Again, I think you should slow down a little bit and provide lots and lots of details.
Hey, good morning, Amy.
Good morning.
Your pencil.
Glad to have you with us.
Yeah, happy to be here.
All right. Yeah, you might even want to come up with a show them if you've got your process written down. Actually, probably the more things you have written down as a party person, which I'm nailing as the person who you see there, Amy, who's talking, pretty much guaranteed that's what she is. If she was working with a perfection person, you know, show them your process, show them a checklist, probably. Things like that would be good. Right.
I find the RPR report is really good for the perfection or owl. I call them owls.
Okay.
Because they like all the data, they like all the wisdom.
Yeah, and some of those, I don't know how many of you have used RPR and some of those reports. My one comment on that is you probably need to dial down the number of pages that are in that thing, because even on the condensed property reports, there's still, I don't know, 15, 18 pages, but for the perfection people, that might be perfect. So
I did it for an engineer recently, and it was like, it was more than 40 pages, and he loved it all. Yeah. I mean, he was ecstatic.
There you go.
Whereas me as the party person, I would just cloud over. I don't want you to give me 45 pages of information.
Yeah.
No.
So keep in mind, just when we talked about this last week, try not to, one of the things that can happen very often, because we're so used to looking at MLS sheets and MLS reports that we know exactly what we're looking for, and we kind of blow through them. And one of the biggest things I took out of Ninja was stop burying people in MLS reports and MLS sheets, because you know right where the information is, but you probably, if there's something specific you want to show them, you probably need to pull the sheet out and circle it and show them exactly what it is you're looking at. Great. Thank you, Amy. So these are just some other tips here. You know, look at, when you're dealing with those customers, try to figure out what personality type they are. And you're not going to remember everything on this, but just think about one or two things. What is it that's important? You know, if I'm going the opposite way, if I'm piece of perfection and I'm dealing with a power person, I better speed it up. I better keep it in bullet points. I better not give them the 40-page report, things like that. You know, and then look at it from the risk side. Are they a risk taker? So I'm going to slide into a tennis analogy here. Are they a risk taker? Are they going to go toward, do they have a toward strategy? Are those people that are, you know, over here on the left, are they going up to the net to win? Or are they a risk avoider like these people over here on the right? Are they going to sit back and be more defensive? So just know what you're dealing with and try to work with that personality type. All right. Another one of my favorite ideas out of Ninja is the idea of a magic wand. And I had a magic wand and I lost it. And so I went this morning and I found this nice disco ball magic wand. And I think it's something you may just want to put one of these on your desk somewhere, not maybe necessarily just like this, but you can go to one of those Party City and buy you a cheap little $2 magic wand. And the one thing it will do is help remind you of using this type of question. And there's a few things here. When you use this type of question, you put people in a pretend state, and they will be more likely to share their true reasons or their true concerns, help them gain clarity, and possibly tell you what the solution is just by asking them that. So who has used this and how do you use it, on a daily, weekly, monthly basis? Who has used surely we've got several people on here who have used the magic wand questions. How about Danielle or Bonnie? You use those? Either one of you?
Neil?
Yes, Pat. Thank you.
I have used it. I don't use it as often as I probably should, but I usually just ask them, if I could wave a magic wand and make all your problems go away and everything be absolutely perfect, what would that world look like? And sometimes they're so taken aback by the question that they don't really get it, but they'll usually come up with something, at least one thing that they would really like to have happen that they hadn't told me before.
And it's interesting because Pat has like the magic tail going back there today. I see.
That's my magic cat.
I like it. I love this question and I use it all the time. I use it actually use it in agent interviews, like when they're looking at companies. Hey, if you could wave your magic wand and tell me what you're looking for in a broker or in an office or in a company, what would those be? And then you'll know. But I really like it when you're talking with, let's say you've got a buyer and you're getting ready to write an offer. Think about it from the standpoint of, if asking that listing agent. And today, I think in all of our markets, as competitive as it is, if you're not doing this, I think you're doing your buyers a disservice. Call the listing agent and ask them that question. If your seller could wave a magic wand and have the offer they wanted, what would it look like? And then just be quiet. And there is a good chance that they might give you some additional insight into what those sellers, are looking for that might help you draft a winning offer. So hopefully, if nothing else, you'll think about using it for that. Anybody else using this question in any other ways that I might not be thinking about?
I did.
Tell us about it, John.
I had a neighbor 2 doors down before I got my license. He sold his house, or they sold their house, and didn't use a realtor. So in my mind, I'm thinking, well, what could I have done as a realtor to convince them to use a realtor? So we went out to dinner with him. This was a couple of weeks ago, and I was, reading my Ninja book and all. And so I asked him. I said, Mike, what could a realtor have done to make that process better for you? And he dealt with the buyer's realtor. He didn't have one himself. And I never got an answer. He looked up, he goes, that's a really good question. And then we got distracted with other conversations, and I never really got a clear answer out of it. But I got him thinking. His eyes lit up, and he thought about it for a minute, but I guess I didn't follow up good enough to get an answer from him. But, because I know I'm going to run into people. We all run into people that don't want anything to do with realtors.
Well, and in today's world, when they hear people talking about, people selling their house within hours or even days, you have to do things that are going to show additional value. And that's something that, you need to focus on. And back from a few weeks ago, if you weren't with us, we covered, and actually this was out of one of the videos. I liked it so much, I printed it out and it's sitting on my wall. But it was a value clarification question. And one of the other items that was on this was in hot markets, right? In this market, your greatest expense is not the money you don't make. Focus on the money you can make in a hot market, not what you can save. So for example there, John, I don't know why he didn't use a realtor, but there is a decent chance he was trying to save money. Well, if you could have made him additional money by gaining more exposure and different experiences, that could have potentially made him more money instead of him focusing on the money he was going to save. I don't know if that was his scenario or not, but just know if you happen to come across people who are thinking they're going to save money, in the hot market, in the seller's market, you may want to think about ways that they can make more money instead of just saving. There's also, I would say getting to a contract is as a baseball analogy, you're on first base. You're not all the way there yet. So you've got to get through inspections. You got to get through the appraisal process, lending, if that's an issue. So there's other ways you could use that. Anybody else with the magic wand? Anything you've done there to use that question?
The magic wand, or to really narrow down. Well, I use a series because I'm always trying to find out, why are they moving? What has changed now in their life to make them want to get in the car and go look at houses after being in their house for 19 years? I mean, they'll tell you, oh, my closets are too small, or da-da-da-da. Well, your closets have been too small for 19 years. What's happened? Oh, we have a baby on the way. Our master bedroom's upstairs. He just had hip surgery. We need to move down, that kind of stuff. So, and then once I kind of have that, that's when I really bring in that wand and say, what is, you pick your dream kitchen. What's your must-have rooms? And then tell me about it. What's your master suite? If the master bedroom and bathroom sets, wave your magic wand. What would it look like? Tell me the dream kitchen. Tell me the dream bathroom. And then, kind of narrow down from there. Because a lot of times people say, well, this house doesn't meet a lot of their criteria, but it has the dream kitchen. All of a sudden the other rooms don't matter.
Good point. So she's using a combination of the magic wand and questions to determine their primary motivation. Why is it they're looking now? Why is it they're going to sell now? And I think that's great because you could always help tie that back when they get into a decision process. Let's just say you're stuck in negotiating over price. Well, Mr. and Miss Client, this will help you get to that dream kitchen, or you did say that having the master was important to you now, right? Or master downstairs was important to you now. This will accomplish that. So sometimes you have to take people back to their primary motivation. But, I've done it a number of times where I'm not exactly sure of their primary motivation. Maybe I didn't ask enough questions, or it didn't keep drilling down to find out what it is. And if you don't know what it is, you're just guessing. But if you can get them in that pretend state by asking the things like, hey, let's just pretend, or if you're not, you could just say, well, let's pretend you had the perfect kitchen. What would it look like? So you don't have to, if the magic wand, I know when I first heard this, I was like, that is so corny. I'll never use that. But I can tell you 3-4 years later, I use it all the time, at least on a weekly basis, if not, several times a week. So however you have to say it, just try to maybe practice it into something that's comfortable for you. But for me, I just say the magic wand, if you could wave a magic wand, and I kind of do that, that's the way I do it. But
something I've been using for years is when I first meet with the buyer client, I say, let's pretend we're driving down the road and suddenly we screech on the brakes and there it is in front of us, that perfect house that you've been looking for. What does it look like? And then they start describing what they're really thinking, and it gets them motivated to, I mean, from the kitchen to the master bath to the backyard, it kind of covers all the areas.
And that's doing exactly the same thing. You're just not using the magic wand words. That's fine. That's perfect. If that's what works for you and you're comfortable with it, then hey, go with it. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Valerie. All right, let's move into, and Amy kind of alluded to this, but this, I think, is a great transition right into the 85% perfect home story that's in chapter 36. And I found this photo of a house that is roughly 85% complete. I don't know exactly what all the inside looks like, but maybe on the outside, it's pretty much finished. If I got a really good deal or I was looking for a house, I might buy that house as is if I got the right price on it, because I felt like, I could finish it up. I could get that yard finished. But the idea is to give people permission to buy something that maybe is not 100% perfect. And so you might it's probably going to be better and more impactful if you can share a real story. So if you've ever built a house from scratch, then you can certainly relate to this story. But maybe you've had some clients that built a house, and even though they picked everything in it, which can be overwhelming to some people, when they get finished, more than likely there are a few things they would still change. So, you might just tell people your own version of that. So if you've built a few houses or a house, then, and chances are you didn't build it exactly the way you would if you were going to do it again. But if you can get close, then if you can get that 85% perfect house, hey, that's a house you ought to seriously consider. That's different from telling them they ought to buy it, right? But they ought to seriously consider it. So that's a good one to just kind of practice with somebody or practice with yourself in the car, but have that story. And I think it's also important that you try to find a time to share that specifically with a buyer before they get ready to write an offer, or before it feels like you're pushing them to write an offer because you feel like it's an 85% perfect house. Maybe that's a discussion you have, and then you ask people as you're looking at houses, hey, does this house hit at 85 or above for you? So you'll know kind of what they're looking for. Again, you're giving them permission to buy something that's not perfect. All right, so today's breakout groups, what I want you to do is to practice a magic wand question or two, or the 85% perfect house story. So write this down. Who heard something good specifically out of either the magic wand question or the 85% perfect house story? One of the things that came up in our group was, well, I may be worried that they're going to come up with something that's totally off the wall that I can't find. I can't help them find. So that's when I said, I just tell people, hey, if you've got enough money and enough time, you can do anything to a house that you want. And then I kind of laugh a little bit like that. But so who else? Yep, go ahead.
One other thing we talked about, once you're showing a property and you know that it meets the criteria that they are looking for, you ask them, can you see yourself living here? And usually you get a positive response regarding that. Yes, no, you'll know to either move on or continue.
And interesting, and I believe it was this week's reading, there's several questions where Larry goes through that, and he is like, can you see yourself living here? And then the next question he used was, can you see yourself purchasing this home? So it takes them yet another step a little bit closer to a decision. All right, who else had something from their breakout group that they might want to share? Anybody?
We talked about how with the kind of a limited market, that 85%, is maybe a better criteria than trying to find the perfect home.
I like that. You might also think about drilling it back to interest rates. So that might sound something like, well, Jack, with interest rates being at probably the best they're going to be in our lifetime, is this a house that you would consider, even if it was only 85% of maybe your perfect house? Bring it in that way. All right, we're going to move on to chapter 37, talking about the Ninja consultation. So I try to use the language consultation instead of presentation when possible. But you're going to go for that connection first of all. So, you know, when you see somebody, try to find a way to connect with them. If you're in somebody's house, it is a little bit easier to do, but I always try to find some way I can connect with them. And maybe even in today's world of a lot of information being on social media, whether it's LinkedIn or Facebook, you might actually think about going and try to look at some of these people's profiles or connections to figure out a connection before you get there. Maybe they're friends with somebody that you've sold a house to, or a good friend of yours. Next, you're going to look for information, whether that's pain or pleasure, and then you're going to offer some different solutions, and then you're going to make a proposal. So, you know, let something and, you know, put something out there, and it's going to be their decision. So those are the steps there. I think if you know, you've probably heard me mention this several times in the different sessions if you've participated in more than one, but I love this quote that we're controlling the process and they're going to control the decision. So the way I kind of shorten this out for folks when I talk to them is, and I'm just mainly talking with other agents, is, you know, we control the process, they control the decisions. So whether it's them making an offer on a house, whether it's them deciding on a negotiating point when you're working an offer, whether it is whether you're negotiating repairs, any of these things, you can make it a lot easier on yourself if you'll remember that. And so it will take a lot of stress off of you in the real estate process or in the real estate business if you can just, you get stressed out on those things like working repairs today. Well, just think about it. It's not your decision. You're just trying to help them through the process. So, use that to help put things in perspective, because sometimes I think agents can feel like it's their decision, and it's not. You're going to propose solutions, and they can either decide to do it or not do it, or we can come up with a different solution going back. But anyway, hopefully that'll help you a little bit. Was this eye-opening for anybody else the way it was me?
It is for me. I admit I had to ask Carolyn where the book came from because I don't have the book yet, but I'm ordering it today. I like that. I like that what you just said about it's almost like reassuring them, because there's a lot of anxiety built up with doing any kind of real estate transaction for people that, aren't used to all the steps, and letting them know, just kind of, assuring them that we respect all of their decisions, but we will control the process and make it easier. We will try to simplify it for them and not make it difficult. I know you shouldn't use negative things, so trying to keep it positive and saying, I will help you navigate through this process. I think that's a really
that
good
sounds
point.
better than if you're talking directly with your customer. Probably sounds better than you control the process,
right?
Helping you through the process, or like I said, with some of these peace or perfection people, write your buyer process down in. We've got it right in the book there. They've got a number of steps now. I've actually simplified that a little bit. So whether it's, it doesn't really matter whether it's 12 steps, 10 steps, 8 steps, but showing the people that you have a process to work through is reassuring to them. And like Bonnie just said, I'm going to help you through the process. You're going to control the decisions. And so hopefully that will make it a little bit more assuring for them, and it will make it more enjoyable for you because you won't stress yourself out. Anytime I'm in the office and I see agents stressed out over repairs, or in this last week it was appraisals, any of these different things, just tell them, hey, we control the process, they control the decisions. So, whether you get a low appraisal, well, whether the seller takes it or not, you're not going to decide that for them. So don't let it, stress you out as much, I guess. Okay, who can help me with these? So the first one is what? You're going to ask, not
Tell.
Yes, thank you. And you're going to pull, not
Push.
Push.
no. Probe, not
Pitch.
pitch. Thank you. I'll give you an example of this one. We bought a bed last week, and we were in a furniture place, and we were going through some different things. The guy was asking us what we want, and all of a sudden he went into pitch mode. Well, Mr. Hubbard, you deserve a good night's sleep, don't you? That type of thing. And I thought my wife was going to vomit on the guy, and she totally lost it. And I knew the exact moment of when he started into this, that it was going to drive her crazy. And I almost tried to pull him in, and I really do need a good night's sleep. That really would be worth an extra $4,000 for a bed. But I didn't. But I knew as soon as we got out to the car, she basically told me that, yeah, as soon as he went into that whole pitch thing, he started selling, it turned me off. So remember that when you're out there talking to people. Probe, not pitch. Consult.
As soon as that deserve word comes up, I'm done. That's it. I'm out. As soon as a salesperson starts that, or if they use my name every 2 seconds, that just, I'm gone.
I remember one time we were also at if you've ever gone on a timeshare presentation, I had somebody tell us, well, we all deserve at least 2 weeks vacation every year to, some magnificent place, it's just, anyway, so try not to put yourself in that situation. And the last two, we're going to solve, not
Sell.
sell. And last one is actually the same, serve, not sell. This may be another one of those things you either take a picture of or print it out and put it on your wall so you can just keep that in front of you all the time. All right, this was, I thought, was an interesting piece here. And for some of you, if you're in that party, if you're in that party mode, you might give people two minutes. If you're in the power, that 2 minutes is probably more like 30 seconds, whether those people are going to decide whether they like you, trust you, or want to work with you. So make sure that you're in that right energy quadrant when you're talking to people, that you're on, you're ready, you're focused, and you're bringing the energy. So this is an interesting idea that I did when I first read this book. I practiced this at an open house. I would challenge some of you to think about how you're doing this. I have been ingrained so deeply in when I meet somebody. Of course, now it's different because you're not sticking your hand out to shake somebody's hand, but I have always just done that by sticking my hand out. And what do most people do first? What do they do?
Say their name.
Say their name. Thank you, Judy. I would challenge you to think about ways that you can do this. It can make a distinct difference because you're not coming across as that hard charging power salesperson by sticking your hand out, or elbow these days, whatever it is, and blurting out your name first. And I know that it was interesting that I can remember the open house that I tried to do this at, or I did do it at, and I kept even though I'm consciously trying to do it, I still had some of those where I just blurted out my name, and I was like, this is harder than I thought. Okay, next chapter we're talking about the pursuer distancer dance, and this is just the idea that you want to pull people in towards you and not pursue them to the point that you're going to run them off. So, you can think about this. I know it's a little bit easier to think about from a dating perspective, but if you're pursuing somebody too hard, you're probably going to scare them away and they're going to run. So that's the way that I kind of remember this idea of the pursuer distancer dance. So in real estate, that might be that if you come off with the old proverbial commission breath, you're probably going to scare people away. So don't do that. Find the right questions. Don't pursue them so doggedly that they think that you've got to have this sale to, make your house payment this month. Any customers or maybe agents, no names, please. Anybody that you can think of that maybe you've seen this with, or maybe something that has nothing to do with real estate that you've seen this with, like my story about purchasing a bed.
Quicken.
Excuse me?
Quicken.
Quicken
Quicken does this. They call you and call you and call you like a stalker. Like they're just, it's horrible. And they've chased a lot of clients away from that.
Interesting.
Which is good. Like if you stop calling them, they will call you. It takes about 3 months for the calls to stop. Every other day, if not every day.
Good to know. All right. So just your goals during those consultations, create that connection first, and then within that first 2 minutes, try and take control of the process. So, that's going to look a little different whether you're working with a buyer or a seller, but that you want to try and make sure that they know you have a process and try to do that. So, some of the ways or how do you do this? For example, if you're on a listing consultation, and what would the idea of taking control of the process look like for somebody? Where do most of you want to talk with your people when you're doing a listing consultation?
Kitchen table.
Yep. Thank you, Danielle. I want to try to get them to the kitchen table. That's a great place to go because it's usually more comfortable. It's where their friends go instead of somebody else. So exactly what I was looking for. One of the things on the buyer side that I thought was interesting, and I actually stuck it in your notes. It's over in the chat box if you didn't get this, but I also emailed this out that we used. I sent this to you a couple weeks ago. Is this risk tolerance chart that came right out of the Ninja, one of the videos, and I shared this with you. I tweaked it. I'm gonna just screen share it with you here real quick because I think I have it pulled up on my computer. So I may just need to shrink this down a little bit. But you can see the idea, and it's, if you want to just click on it in the chat box, you can download it. Now, one of the things that so we talked about this, and this is a way that you can have conversations with buyers and talk about these different areas of risk tolerance to figure out where they're at. Now, one of the things, I was sitting in on a sales meeting in our Collierville office last week, and I thought this was a really cool idea that Matt Morgan came up with, and he actually took this chart and he laminated it. So it's laminated, and then he uses a dry erase marker to have a discussion with people about where they're at in these different categories based on the specific house. So for example, if there was some house that they really liked, you know, they may be willing to go a little bit higher in some of those different categories for that house, where if it was for this other house, they wouldn't be willing to do that. So I just thought that was an interesting idea that came up last week that I saw that I thought was really good. I thought I might share it with you, and some of you can try it out.